It is time for Canada to rise up.
Time to make our voices heard. Time to take our place. It is time to rise up.
I have a dream that one day.
Give me the healing of this nation.
Do not think small when the battle is big.
Give me the deliverance of this nation. Give me all that you have had for this nation. My God, whom I serve.
What touched Canada has always gone out and blessed other nations.
But our focus and our gaze is into his eyes that are passionately looking upon us and saying, you can do this if you will let me.
And I am going to go be a part of seeing a nation shift.
I want to make a call for the revivalists and the reformers of this nation to take their place.
Wow, fantastic. Hey, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to our first edition of Eagle Eye Prophetic Perspective with Art Lucier and friends in this new year of 2024. I do have some friends in the studio coming in just a moment. First of all, you guys know what this is about. We try to give some prophetic perspectives to our intercessors on the Canadian firewall. We just want to say such a great big thank you to all the intercessors of this nation, past and present, who are fighting for this nation, who are contending for this nation, who are day and night believing in Matthew 7:7, or is it 7:7? Ask of me and I will answer you. So this program today, I'm really excited about because I'm having someone on this Eagle Eye Prophetic Perspective. Just a moment. We are talking about this coming season. When I say season, it's not just about 2024. But it's about a season and seasons that are coming and yet to come. Remember, the prophetic very often deals about not only what was, and not only what is, but really in what's to come. God is so faithful to send markers in his word, in our spirit, through people, confirmations, and even in the heavens, as Jesus talked about. So without further ado, I'm so excited to bring in our guest. First of all, I just have to say, I have been very blessed. Canada has been blessed to walk with a friend from America, from North America, from the United States of America, Dean Briggs. Right from the beginning, he is, to me, one of my closer friends in the kingdom, and he has been my right-hand man for not only the battle for Canada, but for the establishment of the Canadian firewall. A very welcome voice on our Revival Reformation Reset that is every Wednesday morning. And whenever he's free, he gets on, whether or not he's traveling throughout the world or he's at home. He is a trusted prophetic intercessor, an incredible apostolic teacher. He is a very incredible gift to the body of Christ. And the other person I'm bringing on here in just a moment is my very own son, my firstborn son, Jesse Lucier. He's in the Belize for, I guess over 2 years now. I believe he left in 2021. So if that's correct. And so this is he coming up to 3 years. He's a grade 4 teacher. He's going back to school tomorrow. And I said, Jesse, you're a dreamer. we need to talk about dreams on a program. And Dean said, hey, your son's had dreams that you told me about. Why don't we bring him on? So without further ado, I want to bring my son, Jesse Lucier, and Dean Briggs into the studio. I'm so excited to do this program. We're going to be unpacking some things and some dreams. First of all, I just want to say, Dean, man, here we are 5 years later, my brother. Who knew that this journey, when the Lord spoke to you in October of 2017, that you needed a personal revival of sorts, that you needed to do a little journey up into the frozen land of Canada. Of course, you weren't planning on coming when it was frozen. But Dean, welcome back to the program. How's things going there for you? How was Christmas, and Happy New Year?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Art. It's great to be with you again. The journey we've been on together is one of the great treasures of my life. I look forward to a lot more years of co-laboring with you as brothers for the kingdom, for Canada, for America, for the nations of the earth. Great to be with your son, Jesse. Christmas was great. New Year, here we are. We're rolling strong. I've got my 7th grandchild on the way. There's a chance we could have 2 or 3 more grandchildren over the course of 2024. We're kicking babies out, man. The empire is expanding. And so I hate it that you're I'm glad Jesse and his wife are down there in Belize soaking up the sun, but makes it hard for you to see your grandson. But things are going well here.
So fantastic. And by the way, Dean, I love that promo that we made for February 2020, the second month of 2020. Of course, believe in his prophets, it says in 2 Chronicles 2020, and you shall prosper. We, Battle for Canada, rented Prospera Place. Of course, that promo was done there with the eagle and your voice, and just a memory.
Yeah. And you were even talking about the fast in 2017. That's kind of what, if I remember right, part of what perked our ears when you started going over a couple of these dreams of Jesse's, which I want to get to. He had them in 2017, and that just ended up being this year of, the voice of the Lord, some things from 2017 to 2018. So I look forward to unpacking these a little bit.
Fantastic. And Jesse, my son, and we know that I'm coming there. Me and your mother are coming there in 6 weeks. We get to be with you in Belize. Yeah. We get to see Squid Monkey, aka Malachi Lucier, the firstborn grandson of the family. And lo and behold, though, there's 2 more coming this way for us, Dean. Our daughter is due in, I believe it's in April, and our son Jaden up in Kitimat, they're due in June.
Come on.
I'm not saying we're going to catch up to you, because don't you have like 8 kids of your own? Yeah, it's a little hard when they're all kicking them out.
Yeah. If you just talk each of yours into having 20, 22 each, you should be fine.
All right. Well, here we go. I know back in the day when the kids first got married, I'm like, $5,000. Whoever gives me one first. And my wife's like, slow it down. Just let them enjoy life for a moment. I said, exactly. Enjoy life. And $5,000 to whoever gives me one first. But this is fantastic. Jesse, how's it going there? How was Christmas? How was New Year's? And welcome to Eagle Eye, your first time, my son.
Yeah, great to be on. Christmas and New Year's was great. Trying to get Malachi to walk before the new year hit. He took about 4 steps. We'll get there. Maybe this month. And he's sprouting his 8th tooth. So there's that. That's how he's doing. For me, I've been doing fantastic. Like you said already, I'm a school teacher. I'm in my classroom right now. This is my whiteboard. As you can see, there's some little critters on the background, students. You know how they are. So, but yeah, it's awesome to be here. And yeah, I've been down here for 2.5 years now. I moved down here May of 2021. So yeah, creeping up on 3 years now. Time flies because it doesn't feel that long at all. Not even a little bit. Yeah.
So, Jesse, welcome. This is awesome. Here we are, January 2nd. I know we're recording right now, so we're going to put it out soon. This is the first Eagle Eye of the year, 2024. Like Dean said, it was brought to memory, just about your dreams that we've never really discussed too much in public, especially with you. But I want to let our audience know that 2024, things are ramping up, and a lot of dreams. There was like, I remember I had that dream. A lot of it's coming to pass now. There's a convergence of dreams and words. Things are ramping up. And, we were just talking about 2017. That's when Dean first got the word about coming to North Battleford, Dean, who knew? 1 year later, we were together in North Battleford for 10 days, contending on the 70th anniversary of the latter rain outpouring from the time where God spoke to you in 2017, and the Lord had spoken to me. I brought a word in 2017 to the prophets, Stacey Campbell and others, just about, I said, you know what? We need to do these national gatherings. I don't know who's going to lead or what, but we need to get before God, get things right, because there's a harvest coming in and we might miss the harvest. And then, of course, so, I met you the following year in May of 2018. Dean, we hadn't even called to the Battle for Canada yet. We gathered with other national leaders, Rob Parker, Barry Miracle, Mark Briswa, Fatine, Kirk, others in June of that year of 2017. And that's where we first figured out that we were going to call it the Battle for Canada. And then, of course, me and you were together in of September 2018. That's when Charlie Robinson phoned us and said, I had a dream about ketosis. But Dean, I need to go back just a little bit, 1 year, even before I met you, that time where you started hearing about from the Lord to go to, to do a personal revival, that you can speak to that. But there was something that happened in the heavens in September of 2017, a year before we did North Battleford. And I seen it coming. The Lord showed me some things, and what it was there was a sign in the heavens. Now, we don't have time to go into the whole biblical thing where Jesus even said God gave the sun and the moon and stars and moon for seasons and times. Okay, there was a sign that appeared. Many of you know about it on September 23rd of 2017 in the year 5777. The Revelation 12 woman sign was fulfilled, because as it says in Revelation 12:1, it says a great sign appeared in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon at her feet, 12 stars at her head, was about to give birth. So this is a sign in the celestial heavens. And remember, God named all the stars and he made all the constellations as he told Job. But listen, Dean, what we did as some crazy ones up in Kitimat at the time, we took our band, we took a couple trailers behind my trucks. We did a journey up on a mountain in Prince Rupert with our full band, full sound system. We only made it 3/4 of the way up the mountain because there was a mudslide, and we had to park on the side of the road on this mudslide on the side of the mountain, unloaded everything. And this was on Rosh Hashanah 2017, and we prepared for this, and we fasted and we prayed. There was a bunch of us, and we went up there, and it was my son's first time doing a serious fast. And so what I'm going to do right now, Dean, I want our audience to hear about Jesse's little journey here. He was the drummer of our band at the time, and he decided to do a serious fast for the first time in his life. So Jesse, why don't you unpack for us this, what I just talked to us about this time. You did a fast, and what happened that night on Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to hand it over to you, son. Go ahead. Tell us about your fast and the dream.
Yeah, so the reason I took this fast anyways, there were 2 members of our church who had cancer, and you called for I believe it was a Daniel fast for 3 weeks. And I thought about jumping on this fast because I've never been on a fast so long in my entire life. But at the time, I wanted to propose to my wife, my now wife. And I remember 3 days in, I came to you and I said, hey, Dad, I think I want to jump on this fast for the rest of the remaining 18 days, but I want to up the ante a little bit. I want to do no food at all because I'm also fasting that God will bless my future marriage. And you thought it was a great idea. And so I did it. I've never felt grace so strongly on my life than through those days. I got through it relatively well. I was 130 pounds by the end of it, pretty skinny. I could see my bones sticking up through my feet, and my cheeks were all sunken in, and my sleeves were super loose, so I had to gain back all that size. But at the end of those 18 days, like you said, we went up on to the mountain in Prince Rupert for Rosh Hashanah, and we had an incredible night of worship. And at the end of that night of worship, I proposed to Leanne, who's now my wife, and that concluded my fast. And it was also incredibly worth it. Now, me, Jaden, and Billy went to sleep in the work trailer that packed up all that sound equipment, and I had a couple dreams that night. And this first dream is probably the greatest dream I've ever had, period. I remember the dream started out, I'm in a dark room, completely pitch black, I can't see a thing. And there's a small film of water on the floor, about a 1/4 inch high. And every time I took a step, I could see the water slowly ripple out away from me. And at first I was standing in the room alone, but then I came very acutely aware that somebody else was in the room with me. And I felt presence. And I turn around and look behind me, and there's Jesus standing before me. And he's got the white robe and the red sash, very dirty, muddy sandals, and an unkempt beard, deep blue eyes, like he was just staring straight into my soul. And he had this sort of mischievous look on his face, like he had every emotion on his face all at the same time. And I couldn't tell what he was thinking. And I couldn't say anything because I was just so overcome by what I was looking at. And after staring at him for a few seconds, he looked at me and he said, I'm really proud of the way you handled that. And that just shot like an arrow into my heart. And that for me is my proudest moment, to where I could do something as a human being well enough that Jesus would find it worth it to appear before me face to face and tell me he's proud of me. And from that moment, Jesus decided to take me on a little bit of a journey from there. After he told me he's proud of me, he said, I'm going to show you some things. He told me not to be afraid. And he told me just to soak it all in for a while. And so in this dark black room with this film of water, the floor opens up beneath me. And I'm in this plane, pretty poorly constructed, just sheets of scrap metal that is somehow flying, is the best way I can describe it. And he's flying will see kingdoms rise and kingdoms fall, and kings overthrown, and powers destroyed, and powers brought in. And as he's telling me all this, I can see within seconds there are vast kingdoms with vast armies being developed on this landscape straight before my eyes, these incredible powers. And then they're subsequently toppled within seconds, and new kingdoms are taking their place. And he shows me this for a while, for probably 2 or 3 minutes. I'm watching all of this, and I'm just soaking all this information. And I can see political rulers falling off of skyscrapers, plummeting to the ground below, and another kingdom taking their place, all throughout different time periods, spanning thousands of years. And as I'm watching this, he tells me something again. And he looks into my eyes and he says, "Get ready." And that plane opens up beneath me. And I start free falling through the sky. And I'm 20,000 feet in the air. Then pretty quickly, I'm 15,000 feet in the air. Then pretty quickly, I'm 10,000 feet in the air. And I'm just falling and falling and falling. And a few thousand feet above the ground, this plane catches me again. And I'm freaking out watching all this. And he looks at me and as he's flying beside me, and he says, "There's going to be moments in your life where you're going to feel like the ground beneath you is pulled out straight from under your feet, but I'll always be there to catch you before you hit the ground." And I woke up, and that was the end of my dream. I woke up somewhere in the middle of the night, probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I wrote that dream down instantly because, like I said, that dream was incredible, and I'll never forget it. Yeah.
So in your dream, you're seeing kingdoms come down and kingdoms being rised up real fast. And the Lord said to you, you're going to see this happen with your own eyes?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so this was on Rosh Hashanah after you fasted for 18 days, and God says he's well pleased with you. Okay, that's okay. So now, Jesse, you're a bit of a dreamer. We for sake of time, we're going to go on.
Yeah.
Now I remember this. I remember so well at this time, obviously, and like you said, I've got a pretty good memory for dates and so on and so forth. It would be a few weeks later that you had another dream, and in this dream, now we want bullet points of this next dream.
Okay.
This was the dream. With the 7-Eleven in it. So go ahead, unpack the dream, and just bullet points and about this dream. We want to hear this one as well.
Okay. So where the dream begins is me and my brother in a conference hall, very familiar setting with very familiar people, like Weston and Stacey Campbell and Charlie and Sammy Robinson. And we're in this conference hall. And I leave the conference hall, and there's a lineup of young adults headed somewhere else. And I ask these young adults, "Where are all you guys headed? There's thousands of you." And they say there's a heavy metal band performing at the next building over. And so I was pretty discouraged by this, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. Now, later on in the dream, just soon after, my dad comes out of the conference hall and he wants to get a snack at the 7-Eleven across the street. So we head over there, and behind the counter and across all the walls in the room inside the 7-Eleven, there are comic books on the walls everywhere. The place is riddled with them. But there was a very special comic book that I saw up there, and it was encased inside a glass container with a price tag of $500. And I read the title of the comic book from where I was standing, and it said, "Superman Kingdom Come." And it had a picture depicting Superman defeating an evil counterpart of himself on that comic book. I didn't purchase the comic, but we just grabbed our snacks and we left. As we're leaving, there's a security guard in charge of this lineup of these young adults headed to the heavy metal concert. And he's giving us a hard time because he knows we're not supposed to be in line with all these other kids. So my dad doesn't take too kindly to that, heads inside the conference hall. I don't see him for about a minute. As I'm talking to these kids, my dad comes back out of the conference hall with a microphone in his hand. And he goes into line and he grabs a kid's hand and holds it up into the air like this. And like a hive mind, every single person, thousands of them, all these young adults in the line, all put their hands up like this, holding each other's hands. And so because I was standing in the line at the time, Jaden grabs my hand, holds it up in the air too. And I'm wondering what's about to happen. And in that moment, with everybody's hands in the air, my dad yells fire into the mic, and everybody in the line starts violently shaking under the power of the Holy Ghost. And I remember shaking so violently that I woke up from this dream. And I, of course, wrote it down right after. So that's my second one there.
Wow, fantastic. So listen, for sake of time, we're going to start to just even, and it's interesting because I believe the Spirit of God, Jesse, spoke to Dean, myself, about having you on. And we know that I like to do it more like Thursday, Fridays, but you're going back to school tomorrow. And so here we are, January 2nd, right at the beginning of the year. Dean, I think, let's touch that first dream first. I want to point out to our audience that this was at the end of a fast, a long fast, people fasting. And Jesse had done 18 days of just water, never done anything like that before. And he has a visitation from God, the Lord himself. And he sees, God shows him, says, in your lifetime, you will see this kingdoms rising, kingdoms falling. But I know that you're a dreamer, and I know that you have been around a lot of dreamers, Dean, yourself. Let's unpack this a little bit, even beyond what I did.
Absolutely. I think, obviously we have to start with that famous verse out of Job, for God speaks in one way or in two, though man does not perceive it. Job 33.
14.
And right off the bat there, we have this interesting issue where God is admitting he speaks, and he's also warning that we could ignore it. And the context, as he will make clear, is the ignorable voice of dreams. He will speak, and we may not perceive it because he's going to speak in a way that we can discount as, using our rational mind, our logic. We can say, well, that was just a dream, and therefore it doesn't mean anything. Nevertheless, Job says, God's speaking in a dream and a vision of the night when deep sleep falls on men while they slumber on the beds. Then he opens the ears of men and terrifies them with warnings. I think that opening of the ear is the range of possibilities, but that terrifying with warnings adds this note of sobriety. I don't want to ignore the voice of the Lord when he's given me a warning that I need. And I just hear the invitation in what these dreams are interesting to me. And I think, Art, we got to go back to where you started. 2017 was an interesting year. The month of September, there are signs in the heavens of the highest order. Revelation 12 signs literally lining up with the virgin, the dragon, that great sign that Revelation 12 talks about. That's in September. I'm not aware of that. I wake up October 1 with this prompting to go. Along the way, it turns into this whole, what we've been on now, 5-year journey of fasting and prayer and revival for Canada, for the nations. And there's things like that happening all over the earth. It's not that this is it. That's the point. This isn't it. This is just barely tip of the iceberg. But we do see 2017, this dramatic, unplannable sign in the heavens. I'm getting direction, you're getting direction, and now we're finding out Jesse's dream of kingdoms rising and falling, feeling like the bottom dropping out, flying through the air, which is a terrifying feeling, and kingdoms rising and falling in his lifetime. And we can't help but, think of Daniel 2, that God changes times and seasons, and he raises up kings and brings kings down. And this dramatic activity of times and seasons changing, being evidenced, it's not just static time, but it's new eras that match and are mirrored by the rise and fall of kings and empires. And so this is, this is just, we could ignore this, but I don't think we should.
Right. Mm-hmm. Dean, I just realized this too. By the way, this people, and Firewall, I need to understand this whole journey, all these dreams, all of the prayers, all of the months and years on the Firewall, all of the battle for Canada's, I believe is leading to something, obviously. And Dean, your personal revival of sorts, which led you to Canada, which began the prompting of the Holy Ghost right after the Revelation 12 woman sign was fulfilled, which, by the way, Dean, I need to tell our audience, this was the second fulfillment in all of history of this sign.
Wow.
But you had, the first time was at the birth of Christ.
Wow.
Where Jupiter, which is symbolic, the king wandering star, symbolic of the Messiah, was in the womb of Virgo. Virgo means the one who gives birth as a virgin, the only female in the solar constellations, the only female. Jupiter's in there for 9 months. And on Rosh Hashanah, 2017, he comes, leaves her womb. You start to get prompting of God to go on a personal revival. You go on a 3-week fast. Your fast ends and you leave Canada on the 70th anniversary of the latter rain outpouring. You don't know this. You didn't plan this per se. That was, you had January open. You went and fasted and prayed, and you left on February 12th, 2018. What happened 70 years earlier is February 12th of 1948, the latter rain revival. The Lord, you wrapped up a 70-year season with the last 21 days of it fasting and praying for a personal revival, but our personal revivals are always bigger than themselves. This is undeniably the hand and the direction of the Lord.
Art, I want, and Jesse, just jump in anytime, but I really think we need to spend some time here. Let's not worry about the other filming. I sent you a little note, but a number of things are striking me. For you to say that pattern of the constellations, the stars in the heavens, has only happened twice in history, once at the birth of Christ, that is the ultimate expression of the man-child of Revelation 12, the woman crowned with the sun. That it's called a great sign. A great sign is not a sign that just has one interpretation. It's a great sign that spans ages and has multiple applications. It's the nation of Israel birthing the Messiah. It's Mary birthing Jesus. But I also think it points to the full church birthing the sons of God in maturity, and that man-child that's caught up to heaven to take the place in where we are seated with Christ in heavenly places, where we on earth begin to act in the fullness of our own calling. Well, this is where all these dreams start to converge, and the timing is interesting. 2017, it happens in September. And hold on a second, I got to do this. 2017, it happens in September. And And then I get the nudge to go to North Battleford. We have the dream that guides it is of 10 days in North Battleford to shift the history of Canada. And that happens a year later. We meet. I'm coming into North Battleford. I'm leaving. You're coming in on the day the fire fell. We've told that story many times. But what's important about North Battleford is it's where the latter rain outpouring happened. That is prophetic language used throughout Scripture for the final great move of God. Don't look upon the former things. The latter house shall be greater than the former in the days of the early and the latter rain. In other words, there's a time coming that's going to be like all the revivals ever mashed into one. It's going to be unprecedented. It's going to be a time of unmatched, unimaginable power, glory in the midst of great darkness, the wheat and the tares maturing at the same time. And that controversial move that came out of North Battleford was called the latter rain. One of their key tenets was this idea that there is a generation coming where that Romans 8 manifestation of the sons of God would happen. In other words, it's the Ephesians 4 dynamic where the whole church finally comes into maturity under the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. It's why the fivefold ministry was given, so that the saints can be brought into full perfection, full maturity, full stature at his return. In other words, we're so transformed into his image that he comes back to something that looks like him. And that is the Revelation 12 picture. The woman who's giving birth to a man-child who's caught up into heavenly dimensions. Now that idea of manifest sonship in Romans 8, it's the Bible, but it's very controversial. It's a lot of people have a lot of issues with it. I'm not going to dig into all of that. I just want to note it was in North Battleford that was thrust back into the conversation in modern times. North Battleford and the latter rain outpouring they had a few key things, and that was one of them. 2017, a sign in the heavens that's pointing to that Revelation 12 man-child. And then I go, then you come, then we fight for it. Then it launches these 5 years. And Jesse's dreaming about this time when empires fall and empires rise. Daniel is describing that time. And that second dream of his, the Superman, I think it's figurative language. I think we see in the DC, the Marvel, the superhero fascination, what we're seeing is this latent, soulish desire among the people, unsaved or not, that is longing for full transformation to Christ. It's unredeemed, it's unsaved, but all of those superpowers and superheroes are pointing in broken ways to the ultimate superhero, superpower, the only begotten Son of God. And so that Superman story that Jesse was seeing came in that same year, 2017, when the sign in the heavens, when the North Battleford story, when the latter rain, the manifest sonship, all of this is coming, and it's a whisper and a token. God wants his body to be transformed into the full super stature that he himself walked the earth with. We've been promised to do the greater works. We've been promised that fullness, and he's looking to find a people that will move into that degree of maturity. And I believe it's part of what triggers the rise and fall of empires, because the Antichrist kingdom is looking for any power base, any occultism, any authoritarianism, any totalitarianism that can rise up individually or corporately to compete with the power that is coming upon the people of God. This is incredible, Art.
Yeah, and you've already started to touch base on the second dream. And by the way, I just a point, something I didn't like, I knew, but I didn't know. You wrapped up the 70 years, the end of the 70 years since the latter rain. You flew out on February 12th out of Saskatoon, which, by the way, that's where the Spirit of God actually fell on those kids first, right?
Right.
They started fasting and praying for what would become the latter rain outpouring on February 12th of 1948. They were kicked out of Bible college in Saskatoon. At the end of those 70 years, you jumped on a plane. At the beginning of the next season, I drove in at 6:30 in the morning. I drove all night from Alberta, from Calgary, because my plane was canceled. I drive in. We get there on the morning of February 12th. We're sitting there 3 hours later with Charlie Robinson, Fatine, some others, on the morning of February 12th of 2018, 70 years later. And I decided to look on Google. When did the fire fall? The fire fell February 12th of 1948. 70 years later, Dean, who had just fasted for 21 days with Michelle and Fred Pex and others, flies out. I drive in, and we took the reins for the next season. And the Lord said, though, before you ask me for the well and the latter rain from 70 years ago, follow me, do these things. And we've been on a journey now for 5 years. You started to touch base on Jesse's other dream. Jesse's dream, where the Superman comic was $500. He had this dream in October of 2017, the same time that you 2017, the same time that you started getting the promptings. I drop a word to Stacey Campbell and others right at the same time. I didn't even meet you yet, about a harvest that was coming, about a darkness that was coming in 153-2020, which turned out to be COVID. I said, we've got until then to really kick up the ecclesia, to do business with God. And we've got until Canada Day 2020. On Canada Day 2020, we established the firewall officially, which now is a 24/7 prayer with a couple thousand intercessors from around Canada. We've been going. We are now in the last half of our 4th year. But Jesse's dream in October of 2017 about the $500 comic, when I saw that on October 31st of 2017, that it was a 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. 500 years since Martin Luther had nailed that 95-point thesis to the door, I realized that God was talking big about this coming season because, of course, listen, and for those who may not know, and I know, Dean, you said, let's just do your recording later. I have to say that year of 1517, when Martin Luther nailed that 95-point thesis to the door, it was also the time when Islam took over the Promised Land. You know that, right? In the year 1517, the Ottoman Empire would take over, and they ruled it for 400 years, 8 jubilees. Well, and 2017 of October 31st, it ended 10 jubilees. We entered our 11th jubilee since God gave grace to Martin Luther to nail that point on the door. The 11th hour, the 11th jubilee, began a new season. But Jesse's dream of Superman, by the way, Superman means what in Hebrew? The voice of God. Kal-El is Superman's name. This is interesting because God always speaks through dreams and symbolically. But Jesse, your dream, there was a comic in there. Now, we were all at one conference, a big Christian conference, and next door there was a conference with all the thousands of unsaved kids. We go into 7-Eleven, which I'm not going to get into per se, but there's full of comics. The comic was called Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come, yeah.
Oh, do you have a picture? Jesse, did you even know that there was such a thing as Superman Kingdom Come?
I didn't at the time, no, but the art style of the comic book that I saw in my dream perfectly matches.
There's another one, actually, Mo. I sent you another one. There's another one. This, actually, Dean sent me this. Bring that up again there, Mo. Look at this. It's an evil Superman coming at Superman. And your dream, Jesse, was Superman defeating himself. He could defeat everyone, but he had to actually defeat his evil side. But check this out. This is what I found.
There's Kingdom Come right there.
This is crazy.
This is the art style that the comic book in my dream perfectly matched. Everything was spot on.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to talk about these two. I'm not sure when the Kingdom Come came out, but again, Jesse's two dreams back to back. In the one, he's falling out of a plane, seeing kingdoms rise and fall. In the next, he's seeing the kingdom come of Superman in a comic that's valued at $500, and he has it in the month that is 500 years after the most dramatic upheaval in human history since the first century church. The Reformation of Martin Luther in 1517 was the most dramatic series of planet-shaping events in history. And he has this dream 500 years to the month after, two dreams back to back, again, within just a few weeks of the sign in the heaven of the man-child and the Revelation 12 woman and man-child, that a few days after that, I'm going to get a prompting to go to North Battleford, where so many things were birthed into the church, one of them being this emphasis on a people coming into maturity to the full measure of the stature of Christ, this clash of kingdoms. You're getting a word. I'm just throwing a bunch of pieces out. You're getting the word of 153 in 2020. And in Matthew 24, Jesus goes over, he talks about all these signs shall accompany, and you'll see nation rising against nation and kingdom against kingdom. That nation against nation is ethnos against ethnos. In the last days, in the final climax of history, all the signs, but some of these signs involve when you see all the people against all the people. Basically, nobody can get along with anybody, ethnic group against ethnic group, but then kingdom against kingdom. And that's not a socio-political entity. It's not a boundary on a map. Kingdom against kingdom is the Greek word basileia against basileia. And it is a word used 153 times in the New Testament. Basileia, kingdom. And it's a word that refers to cosmic kingdoms. In other words, it's about the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light, the kingdom of the Antichrist versus the kingdom of Jesus. It is all cosmic references. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. All these cosmic references, not about nation states, but in the last days when people are rising against people, it's going to be because kingdom is rising against kingdom. And the number of those kingdoms referenced in Scripture is 153. And so here again, in 2017, you're getting the word of Canada's prophetic significance coming up on its 153rd birthday in 2020. We know all the things that began to happen in terms of kingdoms in conflict, cosmic and natural, with COVID, the authoritarian systems, economies collapsing. That proceeds for a period of time. We're still dealing with the ramifications of that. But 2017 was the release of the stakes. There is and part of that was this this comic book valued at $500 that shows an evil Superman against a good Superman, and the kingdom of Superman coming. And he comes from another world to save this world. That's the story. And when you first told me this dream, what struck me was in 2017, I had a dream about Superman as well. In the dream, I woke from sleep and I realized I had gotten tattooed, a massive, almost whole body tattoo while I was sleeping. I woke up and it wrapped around my abdomen, my back, a full sleeve up my arm. And it was all of these different comic book characters. But right across my chest was the Superman emblem. And it was these deep, permanent inks They were, I woke up and I was actually thinking, what is my wife going to say about this? Because I was covered in these tattoos, but the Superman story was tattooed right across my heart. And when you told me Jesse's dream, and I'm realizing we're coming to this 500-year story, what the Reformation was in the political, social, and religious sense is now at the highest order. A man-child is being caught up into heavenly realms for the full revelation needed. The Holy Spirit is bringing the early and the latter rain combined. As the wheat and the tares mature, the clash of kingdoms is happening. It's kingdom come time more than ever. We're going to see kingdoms rise and fall in the natural. But in Daniel, the rock cut out of a mountain that smashes the statue of every one of the earthly empires and grows to be a mountain that covers the whole earth. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord in the last days, it says. And come, let us go up, and all nations shall come to that mountain, stream to it, and learn of him. We are in the final Reformation, the last great push of heaven, the coming kingdom of Superman. Our job is to announce, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on this earth as it is in heaven. And we are being tattooed with permanent ink, the vision and mission and gripping calling of this full transformation of our character, our heart, our inner workings to the nature of Christ. He is raising up a company that are fully transformed in his image. This is the biggest story in history, and we're living in it.
Wow. Wow.
Well, you know, just for those who may not know, yes, on the 7th Jubilee of the Ottoman Empire, the Muslims holding captive the Holy Land, 1867, Canada is born. Interesting. Very, very interesting these years. And the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth, sends a general over to Jerusalem to do a secret mission of marking out the walls of Jerusalem in 1867. 50 years to the day that general is in marking out the walls that are half buried of Jerusalem. 1917, on the 8th Jubilee of Islam owning the Promised Land, Canada's 50th birthday. But on that very day, 50 years later, they bring forth the Balfour Decree, which talks about Israel being a right to exist as a nation and coming back home. You know, and of course that happened in 1948, that Israel is established as a nation once again at the same season as this, the latter rain outpouring, which, by the way,
you also have, if it was 1867 that general went, I didn't know that story, but 100 years after that is the 6-Day War in 1967, which liberated Jerusalem.
It is on Canada's 100th birthday. By the way, Dean, you will not believe this. Well, no, you will. 50 years to the day of the Balfour Decree, they take the Temple Mount. They take back the Temple Mount, the 6-Day War. 100 years to the day the general was in Jerusalem. 50 years later to the day, the second man in all of history, the second Gentile of all of history, would announce that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. His name is Donald Trump, a modern day Cyrus, as they say, because Cyrus was out of Isaiah 45. Donald Trump is the 45th president, who was the first Gentile in all of history to say that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. It was Cyrus himself. Now, 3 years later, COVID hits on our 153rd birthday. The world shifts. 153 talks about the harvest. When Jesus says, throw your net on the right side of the boat. How many fish do you have? 153 fish. And of course, the world would shift. And harvest is at the end of the age, it says, Matthew 13. So there's something about a shifting of age. 2017, the birth, second time of all of history, the Revelation 12 woman. This is, we're trying to tell you about God is speaking through dreams, through times, dates, seasons, even the heavenly bodies, that the greatest shift of the ecclesia ever to be upon us, the greatest, like you said, Dean, since 1517, the greatest upheaval of the ecclesia, of the church, the bottom falling out, as Jesse's dream, and just is here. And we're not to be alarmed. We will be alarmed, but we're not to be alarmed. And God is giving us, though, an encouragement in it all. I've got you. I'll catch you when that bottom falls out.
Can I share just one more that dovetails?
Please.
And I had two dreams that dovetail with Jesse's two dreams. The one of Superman we both had in 2017, didn't even know it. The other I had just 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, where I also was falling out of the sky. And as I'm falling, I'm realizing I have no backup plan. I do not know how I'm going to make it. I assume I'm going to die. But I'm given Psalm 91 to read out. He will command his angels concerning you. I began speaking this out. He'll give his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will bear you up lest you strike a stone. Call to me and I will answer you. I'll be with you in trouble. With long life, I'll satisfy you. Anyway, I do all that. And as I'm falling, I find myself safe on the ground out of Psalm 91, but I don't have three things. I don't have my car keys, I don't have my wallet, and I don't have my phone. Now, those three things are important. The keys are how I go someplace. They speak of ministry and purpose and getting somewhere. My wallet speaks of means and identity, and my phone speaks of being able to talk to who I need to talk to, either human relationships or even that idea, the satellites that govern it all. It's kind of a heavenly communication. So everything I need, I've landed safely out of Psalm 91. I'm dropping, the bottom dropped out. And I, like Jesse, was falling with no idea how I was going to make it. I'm bringing this up because I think in the midst of kingdom versus kingdom, his was a more cosmic in scope. Mine was almost more pastoral. In the middle of the bottom dropping out when we're falling from the sky, how do we make it? And Psalm 91 became the prayer. But when I landed and lacked three things, my identity and means, my ability to have purpose, and my either my communication with others or with God, I that was missing. But I knew in my heart there was a place I was supposed to go. It was called Sugar City, and Sugar City is the sweet spot. So I set out to find Sugar City, the sweet spot, and on my way, I found all three of those things: my wallet, my keys, and my phone. And I knew that the Lord had allowed me to lose them. They fell out in my flight so that I would know how much I needed them. If I had landed and had them, I would have taken them for granted. I landed and didn't have them, and I knew how much I needed him. So he put me on a journey to find the sweet spot. And on my way, all three of those had fallen exactly on my path. I recovered my wallet, my keys, and my cell phone on the journey. I think this is just pastoral kind of how do we weather the storm of these days, the crisis of these days, when the bottom drops out and cosmic collisions and empires are rising and falling, and we have all this inner work where God is wanting to tattoo us and call us into our highest calling. All these things, I mean, these are epic, dramatic, historic struggles in the natural and in the spirit. But the Lord has a way to put us on the path for each of us. He's customized a journey, a sweet spot for each of us. And out of that, we're going to recover things that we might feel like we've lost when the bottom dropped out. He's going to bring it back to us, and we're going to know the meaning of it even more in those days.
Mm-hmm. Can I say something just on that quickly, or how are we doing on time?
Good. Let's go quickly here.
So I preached on that a few weeks ago, something similar. You know, there's two ways of looking at the world. There's an objective reality and a narrative reality. And Jesus is the meeting of those two realities. And so I like how what you mentioned is God put you back. Finding your sweet spot was you finding your purpose. And what I preached on is when people find their purpose in this life, the purpose that Jesus has called them to, their mission and the mandate, and you walk it out correctly according to God's will, you begin to look more like Jesus. You begin to look just like him, to the point where the world can't really tell the difference between you and Jesus because you're so enveloped in what he's called you to do. And when you mentioned the Superman thing, the world is looking for Jesus, and the world is looking for people who look just like him. And so we're called in this season to rise up into our purpose, into our mandate, to the point where the world can see Jesus so strongly through us that we become the answer that the world is looking for in a time like this, in a day like this. And even just for 30 seconds more, this reminds me of something that my dad used to say all the time when watching movies like Lord of the Rings and Gladiator and all these movies set in that time period. My dad would always look at me and say, you know, maybe we were just born in the wrong era, because there's something so cool about that era. And then years later, I sort of just spun it around a little bit, and I said to myself, you know what? Maybe we were born in exactly the right era. You know, maybe we're exactly what the world is looking for in a time like this, you know, those superheroes.
Jesse, I agree 100%. And that's why I think it's so important that you are with us on this as a voice of the next generation rising to bear witness to the Spirit of Christ within you, the Spirit of Christ at work in the earth. Because Romans 8 says the whole earth is groaning, waiting. The physical creation itself is groaning and waiting and longing for the manifestation of those who will enter that fullness, of those that will be caught up into the heavenly realm, transformed, fully submitted, surrendered, empowered. And this kind of multi-generational conversation with you and your dad, and I get to just kind of join in on it. That represents that roll down of righteousness that finally crescendos in one generation that enters in full behind the veil. The veil's torn and we all have access, but there has not yet been a generation that has entered in full. And so I agree with you. I think this is, and it's why I'm glad the Lord is giving these kind of dreams to you and others. It just speaks of the days we're entering into. Feels like the bottom's dropping out. I remember, if I can quote it right, an author many years ago, he said, the sky is falling, said Henny Penny, and the answer came, no, earth is finally rising to the heavens.
Wow. Wow.
Well, you guys, this has been
special.
Amazing. This has been special. Honored to have you, my son, here. I'm so grateful that, you know, hey, kids need to make their own decision. And at some point, my boys, all my kids needed to make Jesus Lord for themselves, not just ride on the coattails of mom and dad. You did. You're following the Lord. You're a preacher now. You're even a worship leader. You're a teacher in Belize. We're proud of you. Me and your mother are proud of you. May God continue to give you dreams. Yeah, Jesse, with just blessings on you and the family. And thanks for coming and being a part here with a couple of old guys.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And what a glorious day. This has been amazing here, January 2nd.
Art, I got to just say, because
Yeah.
Jesse looks so different now. He's all peeled and trimmed down. The first time that I met him is when you sent him to the airport to pick me up, and he was out to here, man.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah,
totally
I believe
different.
you.
It was a totally different Jesse then.
Yeah.
It's great to see you, Jesse. You're looking good,
Thanks.
man.
You too, Dean.
Yeah, so amazing. And Dean, honored to run with you. God has us tied at the hip. We're part of the same prophetic story to be able to remember the past as you closed out those 70 years, and as the Lord would have me begin a new 70, a new contending for a new, I don't want to call it dispensation, a new revival, a reformation of sorts, a new revival, reformation. It's not one or the other. It's not one. It's both. It's both and the bottom is falling out in some ways, but there's new kingdoms arising in some ways. Remember, Dean, on the 5th anniversary of you leaving Saskatoon, 5 years ago from the day that I pulled into North Battleford, which was 5 years ago, this February 12th, the greatest sports event yearly of happened, the Super Bowl, and it was the Chiefs and the Eagles contending for the greatest prize. And here we see an outpouring of apostolic prophetic grace like we've never seen. People might not believe in it. Well, they might not believe in gravity either, but you can't, it's just there. But there's a greatest outpouring of apostolic prophetic grace here now. The prophetic, hearing the voice of God. Superman means Kel-El, the voice of God. It's here, and the voice of God is going to win out. God, that mountain coming down is going to win out. It's destroying some idols. There's kingdoms falling, but get your eyes on Christ, and we are all the same at the cross.
Amen.
So with that, guys, I love you, and thanks for being part of Eagle Eye Prophetic Perspectives. Amazing. We'll see you guys later. Thank you guys very much. Talk to you soon.
Agree with you both.
Yeah. Well, remember this, everyone. Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without first revealing his secrets to his servants, the prophets, as Amos 3:7. This has been another edition of Eagle Eye Prophetic Perspectives. Until next time, may you have dreams and may you hear the voice of God. Amen. See you later.